one.
Future trends, deep insights, industry leaders. This is the iGaming Next podcast with your host, Pierre Lindh.
All right, Ben Clemes, CCO of GIG. Welcome to the podcast. How's it going today, Ben?
Good, Pierre. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I am fantastic, thank you. It's a great day here in Malta. We're heading towards spring, and life is beautiful, I must say. And you're located in Spain, aren't you? How are things over there?
It's good. I'm in southern Spain. We're still in a bit of lockdown, but everything's slowly sort of lifting up. It's a rainy day here, but in the office all day, so it's not making much of an impact.
Yeah, no, exactly. We talked about this here before the podcast. It's one of these periods of the year now. In the end, I feel like at least that it's the end of the pandemic. It feels like we have a little bit light in the end of the tunnel. Let's see how things pan out here. But obviously, UK announced their plan to open up society again, and come June, hopefully, we'll be without restrictions. But this is the end of the pandemic, hopefully, and then it's okay if it's a bit rainy, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree. It starts to look a little bit bright, light at the end of the tunnel. So. Yeah, let's hope for a really good 2021.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And I mean, talking about light at the end of the tunnel, I don't know if that's the right analogy here, but it feels a little bit that the journey that GIG has had in the last couple of years have been an interesting journey. Let's say that, and you are kind of heading towards something more positive now with the release of your last quarterly report. And I must say, opening the quarterly report, it's not often that you see a quarterly report with an EBITDA that is up 4,000%. But obviously there is some contrast to this as well. But I'd like to ask you, Ben, can you talk a little bit from your perspective? You're the CCO of GIG, and you released the report. Can you talk a little bit about how did you perceive the report from your end? Are you guys happy with it, and so on?
Yeah, we're really happy with the overall performance of GIG, especially the work we've been putting in the last year or 2 years. Obviously made some pretty big changes, divesting the B2C business, focusing purely on B2B and media. Divesting of the white label model and moving towards more of a SaaS arrangement. Obviously, a huge transitional year as well for media with regards to the impact from COVID, shift from sports to casino and then back to sports. So really on all accounts, it's like it's been hugely positive for the group. And yeah, it's always nice to see a quarterly report like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the reconstruction that you've done with GIG is quite substantial. Like you said a couple of years ago, GIG had its hand in many different cookie jars, and the strategy that you have now shifted towards seems to be a lot more focused. Can you talk a little bit about kind of the change that you've made in your strategy, and also how this journey have been in the last couple of years? Because it must be difficult to go through such a big reconstruction in a sense of an organization, while also trying to develop the products that you're focusing on. Yeah,
I think, I've been with GIG since the start, so it's always been sort of a lot of transition over the years, going from B2C into the B2B, more into media, building our own proprietary products, including the platform and sports, and then having a B2C business on the side. So, and then, as you say, we had our fingers in a lot of jars. Some of the jars didn't make a lot of sense. So, we began with looking at the business units that weren't profitable and that that made sort of sense to divest. And we started with GIG Games. Then we went and did a lot of restructuring with GIG Sports to bring that down to an appropriate sort of spend level. As you could see from the Q4 report, it's been an impressive transition. Whilst always being able to maintain and grow that product and grow the clients on board. So just really the efficiencies in that product itself. And then, of course, with the divesting of B2C earlier in the year, just to purely focus on the platform and the media unit. So more or less a pure B2B operation.
Yeah, it's interesting to see. So it seems a little bit that you're at the end of this process now with the reconstruction, in a sense that it feels that you have landed in these new products now. You are focusing on the platform, on the sportsbook platform, and on the media side of things. Would you say that's a fair statement now, that you have kind of left the old GIG behind fully now, and you are completely looking forward, or is there still a lot of work to be done?
No, I think we're fully have that fully behind us. We've got the focus on now what we need to deliver. We had the focus was there, what we needed to deliver in 2020, and as a group we were all together and accomplished what we wanted to accomplish, and we have set goals for where we want to go forward. I mean, we do still invest in the growth of new products, and then obviously there's always room to improve, and we'll continue to optimize and get better and increase our processes to ensure as much efficiency delivery as we can. While still being innovative, we've invested a lot into our new data platform, which has just been rolled out across all the group. We've actually just switched off the V1 data platform, which is, after a couple of years of working on a new data platform, is exciting to flip the switch. So, and then just the overall growth of the products, and to ensure that onboarding is as quick and easy as possible. And I know that media as well is working on a number of projects. So even though it's behind us, it doesn't stop us from what the objectives are going forward.
Yeah, it's good to hear that. It's interesting. I mean, your organization not only has it gone through obviously this massive shift strategically wise, but obviously then COVID happens, and it seems that you guys identified, or I think you worked even before COVID. You were working as a strategic goal to bring brick and mortar casinos online, right? But it's like after COVID happened, that part of your strategy was accelerated, right? It's something that you give a lot of focus on at the moment, if I'm not mistaken, is to bring brick and mortar casinos online, basically.
Yes,
right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we started the Hard Rock project 3 years ago, and it was really exciting to do a digital transformation for a retail business online. We extended that further and saw the benefits of more of an omni tied together solution. Our goal when we decided to get away sort of from the white label business was to move into the SaaS, software as a service agreements, and primarily into the regulated markets. So with that strategy, and as markets regulate, then you'll find a lot of the target audiences, the retail properties that never had the chance to operate online. So, and with COVID, of course, it's accelerated regulation across multiple jurisdictions, and also the retail partners are seeing the benefit to having the online revenue extension. And even if they were aware before COVID, now this is really accelerated in their minds. So it's been a really good opportunity for GiG, something we really very much leveraged in 2020. We still have a lot of interest going forward, new partnerships and retail to online or digital partners and soon to be regulated markets. So yeah, I mean, it's been a long-term strategy, but now it's starting to come to fruition, which is great.
Yeah, you were really well positioned for that shift, obviously, with the brick and mortar casinos now all of a sudden being very open to transition into online. But I'd like to stay on that topic for a little bit. So I know that in 2020, in total, you set about, I think you said 14 service agreements for the platform.
Yes.
And I wanted to start by asking, how many of those service agreements were from brick and mortar casinos?
I believe 7 or 8, over around 60%. Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously it takes time then to integrate and to go live with these agreements. But is there any kind of like, do you have any indication of how important those will be for your business? It's particularly the brick and mortar agreements. Are any of them live yet, or do you have any indications of kind of what those will mean for the group?
Yeah, we had one recently went live in Romania. And then, we're putting new brands live across mostly in H1, early H2 this year with a rollout plan, basically starting now. So, I mean, they're like the partners that are already on the platform. They're all hugely important for our long-term objectives. We said in the Q4 report that our 2025 objective is to have an EBITDA margin in excess of 40%. Our sort of resource levels are where we'd expect them to be, and things change as you go along. Sometimes you need to invest into other areas, but so essentially we're being able to scale up and take on these new partners without too much impact on the data business. So they're hugely important. I guess, I mean, the one thing that's a bit different with Brick and Mortar is generally that they have like a strong brand awareness in that market and an existing database of players. So you can kind of start flying from the start rather than as a new brand and then building up the marketing activities and things like that, especially if you do sort of the joined up registration piece like we did with Hard Rock, and we're working on now with a new partner where essentially it makes it easier for that retail database to go online and have the same experience as they would have with things like loyalty, transferring between wallets from online to online, that sort of thing. So they're good because it accelerates the revenue growth from these partners with that existing database.
Yeah, because the reason I'm asking is, and feel free to correct me here if I'm wrong, but if you bring an online partner into your platform, would you say that it's easier to kind of expect what type of revenue will come from that agreement than a brick and mortar casino? I mean, I would think that because this is a fairly new trend, that it's a little bit more difficult to know what to expect from those agreements. Is that a fair statement, or do you guys have a pretty good idea of?
Yeah, we have a general idea about the revenue potential of all partners, really, even if it's not brick and mortar, especially in regulated markets where you tend to have more data actually on the revenue, and then you can look at marketing budgets, current brand awareness, that sort of thing, and project further. I mean, we have good data, and there's available data out there from conversion from retail to online. So once you assess the size of the database and again marketing spend and investment, brand awareness in the market, then you can come up with more of an accurate projection of what the future revenues are going to look like.
Yeah, fair enough. And obviously, these brick and mortar casinos, they would obviously need to build a team that can get these products up and running as well. Because sure, they have their own databases, but I would assume as well that they would also like to do the traditional marketing that an online casino is doing to acquire customers as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is. I mean, when we divested the B2C business, we kept a lot of very experienced people in the house, which is now making up our managed services teams. So, I mean, we can provide, obviously we've got a massive media division, so we can provide that expertise and affiliation and PPC, basically below the line advertising. But then on the other side, we have our CRM teams, in-house operations, first line support. So that's been one of the strategic advantages that we've had with the company, is we've had this expertise that we've had from our past businesses still remains in-house. And you have, as you say, retail going online that need to have these resources, and majority of the time they don't actually have it. So we can provide these services to the partner and then allow them to grow the business. Sky City, for example, is a brand that uses fully managed services from us. So essentially the end-to-end offering from platform to the front end to all the supporting functions.
All right, fair enough. That's something I missed out on. I must say that I didn't read up on that part, but that makes a lot more sense to me, because that was a little bit my question mark before. It's like, yes, sure, you're a brick and mortar casino, you want to go online, but they might not have that experience in the house. But yes, what you're saying obviously makes total sense, that that is the experience that you guys can then provide to the customer as well, that they are lacking. Out of these 14 agreements that you set in 2020, but is there any like standouts here? Is there any particular agreement that shows a lot of promise or so?
No, I think they all do, actually. I wouldn't say that there's one. I think the really cool thing with Gig is the amount of products and services that we offer. So, I mean, you have the sort of Sky City client that's end to end, and we have some of the new partners that are taking a lot of services from us, and then we have ones that are just taking, the core platform. So it's a kind of a different experience with each one or each partner on what their goals are. So it's a like a positive challenge to be able to help them on each of the different areas. So, I mean, we have some that are really taking Omni to the full, the fullness of what it can do. So we've got learnings from them, like how we can improve our Omni channel, and we're working hand in hand with those partners that have very good tech on their side. And then we have new regulated markets that we're learning about, that we're moving into now. So I think, all the brands or all the partnerships we signed last year, I think they're all hugely exciting in their own way. So.
Yeah, and the newly regulated market is something I'd love to talk about as well. But so obviously Germany has been on everyone's mind lately. It's a worry amongst a lot of operators that it's obviously going to damage their bottom line and so on and so forth. So I'd like to just start on Germany in itself. Like, what is GIG's position on Germany? What are your expectations on that market, and also how exposed are you to that market?
Yeah, so in the Q4 report, we noted a 9% decrease on quarter revenue, and the majority of that impact was Germany and the divesting of the white label model, which we wanted to accomplish in 2020. We see that that's more or less stabilized. However, I think it's going to be, obviously the short-term dip while the interim regulations are in. But I think long-term or even mid-term, it's going to be a hugely important market for Gig. We've signed a few very good partnerships in that market, partners that are already well-known. So, and as you're aware, like, the German market's huge. The player value is great. We obviously have the regulations that we need to abide by, but I think it's a really exciting market. I think it's, even looking at Netherlands as well, it's another really a huge market in Europe that is now regulating, especially that one has been operating in the grey for so long.
Yeah, but are you scared that these markets will they will over-regulate to the point where it's difficult to sustain profits?
Yeah, we've seen that in a few that, from a technical perspective, like Czech Republic was extremely difficult. Italy's kind of notorious. So from the complexity of what the systems need to do, but I think, I don't know. You can look at Germany, and I guess the people are commenting that the regulations are pretty strict, for lack of a better word. But it's something that we need to abide by. But hopefully the regulators obviously also work with some sort of sensibility. The taxation is another comment that people have had with regards to the Netherlands, but it's a cost of doing business, and it's obviously a cost that wasn't there in the past. But I think regulation for Gig is extremely positive, unless it gets to the point where as you say, the conditions of the regulation make it unprofitable. Then we'll just make a decision not to enter into that market. But as markets regulate, it just opens up more opportunity for us, and we follow all the developments in markets that are soon to be regulated, and keep an eye on the conditions, and continually look from a product perspective on what this means to the platform, what we would need to develop, even down to like reporting requirements and things. So at least we have a matrix and an assessment of what the market would look like, and then we assess opportunity as it comes.
Yeah, so it's an interesting topic, I think, because generally the locally regulated markets is something that the major players of the industry, the major operators are kind of gathering behind. We want to obviously support locally regulated markets and a locally regulated framework, but at the same time, for the medium and smaller operators, it's sometimes difficult to operate in these environments. And just look at UK as a good example of this, where even Betsson now, for example, they pulled out all of their brands except for Risk, your old brand, obviously.
Yes.
Which is I guess highlighted that you guys did well in that market. But the point being that even an operator like Betsson is pulling out from a locally regulated market like the UK, and trends have not been pointing in the right direction in the last year or so, or a year and a half or so. So it'd be interesting to know a little bit more if that is something that you guys talk about internally when you take this approach to, it seems that your focus is on the locally regulated markets, but is that a very clear cut decision for you guys, or is it how do you navigate that when it's so fluid and difficult to predict?
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge we have. I mean, we have the right people in house. As I said, we're always keeping up to date with regulations as they progress, like pre and post regulation. So, no, I mean, it is a tough one to navigate, but that's why the partnership that we enter into is so important, and so important that we assess what the partner actually brings to the partnership is, what we bring from technology and managed services, but also the potential of the partner to exist into the market. I mean, the UK was heavily saturated, as you mentioned. People have been pulling out, the same in Sweden, but larger incumbents have actually thrived in those markets. So that's more our strategy, is to try to partner with that sort of partner. If you look in Hungary, for example, we partner with Casino Win. It's one of two that will be licensed, or the second one that will be licensed. North Macedonia with Legrand, it's only a handful of brands that will be able to operate online there because of the retail to online license restrictions. So, and then again, the partnerships that we've entered into in Germany are well-established brands that are known in the market. So I don't know. I think it's, obviously, if you're a new incumbent, it's challenging into these markets. Brand awareness is becoming far more important, top of mind awareness, especially with advertising restrictions. And then it's always the beauty with the retail to online, it's like the brick through the window sentiment, right? Like, if you've got a complaint, you can go down to the retail outlet because you know them. And if it's just an online brand, it's more difficult. So there's a trust factor as well.
Yeah, fair enough. And just a little question on this topic as well, Ben. It'd be interesting to know a little bit more kind of how GIG see yourself risk profile. So is the local regulation part of your risk profile, or and then also in general, how does your risk profile look within GIG?
Yeah, I mean, the shift that we've had to move into the more software as a service agreements, focus on regulated markets. You can see our media brand WSN in the US is licensing state by state. We're also getting more certifications in regulated markets with media. Focus on the platform to generate predominantly most of our revenue from regulated markets in the future. So I think by having the regulated approach, it's reducing our risk overall. We don't have exposure or large financial exposure to markets that might regulate and maybe regulate and heavily restrict from the licensing. I think in Europe we've been pretty lucky for the most part that it's been opening license regimes, but in other markets, especially the US, there's a lot of restrictions that you have to have a retail license to be able to go online. So you start to see more of those brands going online, but also skin deals where a retail brand might be able to offer their license to a third party. So
yeah. So kind of the geographical diversification is like you're saying, you're entering 7 new locally regulated markets. That obviously lowers the risk profile in the organization as a whole. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, and that seems to be kind of the strategy for many of the operators as well, where they don't want to be standing and falling on these 2 or 3 key markets with the uncertainty on the regulatory side. But if you diversify, then obviously it's okay if one market takes a twist that you're not prepared for, because obviously you have a lot of other markets to focus on as well. So I think that makes sense in general now in the iGaming industry, if you're an operator, in your case a service provider. I wanted to ask you as well. Obviously now within GIG, you're offering like 3 services. Let's say main services. It's the sportsbook platform, the main platform that you offer as well, and the media as well. And we talk a lot now about the platform specifically, and it seems a little bit to me that this is the focus within the organization. And I might be completely wrong here by saying that, but this is what you see. What you see outwards, at least when I kind of read up on GIG and when I read articles and so forth. But at the same time, you are generating about twice the amount of revenue from the media side of the business than you do from the platform. Can you talk a little bit about, as you move forward into 2021 and onwards, do you see this dynamic shifting where the platform becomes the main product, or do you see a continuation in the media side being the flagship product of GIG?
I think it's just the maturity of the divisions, basically. So media is more mature. Got a great team running that, mostly out of the Copenhagen office. So they'll continue to mature and continue to improve, obviously. Record month after record month. We just said that January was another all-time high, which is amazing. And then platform is maturing at a very good rate, but I think that this is where we're going to have the focus on the EBITDA growth and growing the revenues and growing the EBITDA to meet our overall group goals of the 40% plus EBITDA margin by 2025. So I think this is perhaps why platform's getting a little bit more exposure, like outwards looking in. But then, also with the transition and with the partnerships that we've been signing, it's also getting a little bit more exposure, I guess, from the PR side of things. So,
yeah.
No, I mean, we've set the company up really well. So we're essentially a platform and a media division with leadership on each side. So it's even though 2 sort of quite different business units, but we're working together a lot as well on different things, data and etc.
Yeah, and like you mentioned before, they complement each other well as well, right? In the sense that the agreements that you set on the platform side is assisted by the media side in for example with the Brick Mortar casinos that you're bringing online.
Yeah, exactly. But it's also helped on the other way. I mean, media's got hundreds of partners, and they've bought us business in the past as well. So it's
yeah. So you're cross-selling between the 2. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the objective of the company, right? To do the best possible job that we can do from all sides. So hopefully anybody that has a gig touch point has a really good experience, and then essentially it gets them to want more products and services from gig as their needs change. I think regulated markets have shown this as well, that where people have their own proprietary tech, they don't necessarily want to use that to go into a new market. So they've also looked for third-party platforms that can support them into new markets, and rather concentrate their own technology on their core markets. So.
Yeah, fair enough. And now as we look forward as well, Ben, into 2021 and so forth, the quarterly report you released looked good. Obviously, you seem to be entering a better place financially, and so on and so forth. So, what would you say are your long-term objectives now as a group? Now looking forward, you're coming out of this reconstruction of the organization. It seems that you are landing in the projects that you have. So, what are your objectives now, taking kind of the next phase of the organization?
I think just to continue what we're doing. I mean, we've set out the long-term strategic goals with double-digit organic growth over the years. The EBITDA margin, we want to raise cash to lower debt leverage. We have a lot of initiatives from all sides of the business. From the platform side, there's certain elements that we want to rebuild, keep the technology current, which in turn increases our efficiency, reduces our operational costs as the revenue scale. That makes us far more scalable. Media is getting their hands into newly regulated markets, especially with paid media. So I think it's just continue the focus, and then, don't let ourselves get distracted. Just be very selective on the partnerships that we enter into, ensure the long-term sustainability of them, and keep refining our organization to make it as efficient as possible.
Yeah, so it sounds like you guys are not planning any like major strategical shifts in 2021 and onwards. It sounds more that you want to stay focused on the strategy that you have now shifted into, and that you want to take what you have done really well now, and I think you kind of have proved that your strategy is working, and basically just iterate on that strategy, just perfect it, and become stronger as an organization. Is that fair to say? We won't see any like big surprises here in the next couple of months.
I can't say, but it's no, that's
all right.
That's not part of the initial plan. So
all right, I was trying to put something out there, but okay, fair enough. It was a good try, but
it was not bad.
Fair enough. Yeah. So lastly as well, something I noted now as well in the quarterly report, and you mentioned it now as well, you took a loan now obviously in Q4 of 8.5 million euro, and I'd love to dig into that a little bit as well. Why did you decide to take that loan, and how will that benefit your business now?
Yeah, we wanted to improve our cash position, so that there was an opportunity there with the convertible. Essentially, to invest into areas that we can to grow. As far as investment into platform sports, some strategic investment into media, and that's the main reasons that we decided to go this direction.
All right, fair enough. Another, how this ties in a little bit, I guess, is a year ago approximately, you were divested of the B2C brands to Betsson. Obviously, you got the cash injection into the organization.
Yeah.
At that time, and if I understand it correctly, you did pay off some bonds that you had. In that case, you used that money to pay those off. So I guess what the shareholders would maybe be wondering in that case is, if you had that cash injection done, which were supposed to pay off loans and give a cash injection into the organization, why is it, so to say, that money was not enough, so to say, or I don't know if that's a fair question to ask.
No, we paid off the bond that we had due with the cash injection, and then obviously the agreement with Betsson staying on the platform for at least 30 months gives us longer term recurring revenue over time, as that was part of the deal. So, that's more or less it. We paid off the bond, and then
fair enough. So on that note as well, with the on Betsson being divested from GIG, the B2C brands being divested from GIG, in hindsight, I hear sometimes voices saying that that seemed almost like a fire sale by GIG, that you needed to divest those brands to basically be able to pay off these bonds or whatnot. So I'd like to ask you, like, just in hindsight now, how do you look back on that deal? Are you guys happy with that, how it turned out, or could you have done something different?
No, really happy. I mean, we needed to focus, and I mean, as you've seen from the performance of the company this year, the focus has been really apparent in our results. As I said, the benefit that we've also gained a long-term partnership with Betsson out of the deal is great. I mean, with this divesting of B2C, I know there's comments always about anything that you do, right? But it's reduced like the channel conflict that we've had. I think when you had sort of the B2C and B2B markets conditions are changing, it does create some complexity into your organization. And then, we're finding that sometimes decisions of B2B affect the B2C and then vice versa. So just as a group to purely focus on two areas has been sort of instrumental. So I think it's been extremely positive from my perspective.
Yeah. And not only from your perspective, I would say that, I mean, you can clearly see that now in the trajectory of the EBITDA and so forth,
yes,
that
exactly.
the strategy seems to be paying off. I mean, I just want to make a comment here, Ben, because I mean, it's not often you see an organization within the iGaming industry making such a big transition in their core strategy as like, who are you as an organization? Like, what is GIG seems to me have completely shifted from what it was a couple of years ago. And in such a short amount of time, you're already proving that strategy is so successful. Is that something that you guys kind of talk a lot about internally as well? Like how well you have managed to go through this transition?
Yeah, we're really proud of what we've accomplished. It's been a lot of work from the whole group, and that hard work keeps continuing, obviously.
Yeah.
No, we're extremely happy. We talk about a lot in management and leadership and through the group. I mean, you've got to share your pain, right? But you've also got to celebrate your successes. So I think it's been a really good year to do that, and a very good ending of the year. So I think, yeah.
Yeah, prefer to go ahead.
No, go.
Oh, very good. All right. Yeah. So I mean, on a final note on that side, with the divestment of the B2C brands, you mentioned now obviously that Betsson are staying on the platform for at least 30 months within the agreement, and you kind of created that relationship with Betsson. I would, without going into details here, but I would assume that Betsson is one of the more profitable agreements that you have within the group. Are you exposed to potentially, what will happen after the 30 months? Is there any clarity on that? What's your relationship with Betsson and so on?
Yeah, the relationship with Betsson's good. It's like any partnership, right? We've got to do a great job to keep the partner happy and keep them on the platform. It's like with any other partner, essentially. Like, you have a term on the contract, and you need to prove yourself to keep that going. It's almost like any relationship. So
yeah.
No, so we're very happy with how everything's going. I can't speak, of course, on behalf of Betsson what their plans are, but I'm positive for the future, and we just need to keep doing a great job and keep delivering and give them sort of no reason to move away.
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be interesting to see how that turns out, of course. And I want to move on to a different subject here as well now, Ben. I come from the event industry, obviously, being a conference organizer, and COVID had obviously a big impact on our business and how we operate on a day-to-day basis. And in the end of the day, that's why we're here today. It's thanks to COVID. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't have started this podcast. So happy about that. That's the silver lining.
Yes.
Is that you and me can meet here and become friends. So, but I want to ask you, in the perspective of GIG. Obviously, you're a B2B company, and a lot of these deals happens traditionally at trade shows. Both you and me we go to a lot of them, I would assume. ICE being a big one that is now cancelled this year, and obviously all the other trade shows is cancelled as well. So I would like to ask you guys now, when you went through 2020 without hardly any trade shows, how did you guys approach sales? And also, did you notice any big effect of not being able to have these trade shows? Is that something that you have now kind of gotten a new perspective of how important these trade shows are? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think companies like yours have done an amazing job through COVID, when all the trade shows were being stopped, and then how quickly you all transitioned online to have sort of the roundtables, the podcasts, these networking events has actually been one of the strategies we shifted into. You plan to go to these trade shows, and then you just, starting to go to more and more online events, and it's a new experience for everybody. Every time you go into an online event, there's something different, something new to learn. So, I think we need these face-to-face meetings. I don't know if it's just even from a sales perspective. It's just like this networking, like being able to meet up and say hi. And generally when you're like meeting in person with people or colleagues or even people that you've just met, conversations I think tend to be a little bit more open rather than when you're behind a screen. So we had the transition. It was clear in 2021 or 2020 that there wasn't going to be any trade shows to go to. So we started looking more on digital, speaking to consultants in various markets that we would generally go to trade shows in, but we didn't have anybody specifically on the ground there. So, and then for H1, we've kind of got the same philosophy. We don't see that many trade shows happening. ICE was just canceled, for example. There's a few coming up in kind of October, started to be planned, which will be interesting. But I think it's also the safety of like my employees at GIG. Even when they open up, I want to make sure that people are comfortable with traveling and people are comfortable with going there. I think that's the primary concern. But we have budget for 2021 for both digital and trade shows, so we just need to see what's going to be the opportunities this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And iGaming Next, hopefully being one of those events.
Exactly.
That I'll see you at in person end of October. We are keeping our fingers crossed here. But it seems from the indications that we are getting is that by H2, we should see society opening up and even the events coming back to some sort of normality, hopefully. But I still like to stay on that subject a little bit more, because I'm hearing a lot of echoes. Obviously, the trade shows are important to create sales, but they're also a massive cost. If you look at some of the bigger stand-bills at ICE, for example, we look at millions of euro that is being spent there. And now we've gone through the year without those events, and it seems that a lot of the organization have still managed to hit their sales targets. I mean, look at yourselves. You guys have increased revenue. You have set 14 deals, and things are looking positive. So I would imagine, like, Ben, when you go to your CFO and ask for a budget event, and the CFO is like, "Well, you hit your sales target without them. Why do you need this money?" Like, do you think that things will change, or do you think that we will go back to kind of the way we used to approach these type of events?
That's a really good question. I think as you say, there was on some of the events, there was a pretty big spend required. Especially ICE, to actually so people could find your stand. You had to spend cash to put something above it.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I'm not too sure. I think I always personally like the smaller events anyway. Like the iGaming Next events, the smaller.
Oh, music to my ears, Ben. Continue.
IGV in Amsterdam. I think it's like easier to meet people. The cost wasn't so disproportionate, and also nice to visit different places as well. So I don't know. If others are like us, we still have budget for these events. We will always have that in the budget years to go. Will we do a massive triple story, stand at ICE. Like, is there the return on investment? Maybe not, but still to have really good presence at these events. Also think outside the box as well, how to sort of network better at these events and not necessarily throwing all the money into the stand, but dinners after the conference or other sort of events like that. Also hope that the online events continue as well, even when the sort of the offline ones come back. Just you tend to meet a lot of people that you would never have a chance to, and even the big events at ICE, people tend to be back-to-back meetings for 3 days. You never really get a chance to talk, but these just seem to be a lot more relaxed, and go into a room and meet with somebody and have a chat, and people that you haven't seen before, like new people from across the globe, basically. So
yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think the change that I see, at least coming out of this pandemic, will be that the strategy, there will now be the in-person event, but there will also be these new formats that have been created. There has been a lot of trial and error throughout 2020 because this was new to everyone, including us as organizers. So some projects worked well, some others did not work that well, and I think we're coming out of this now understanding better and better where the value actually can be created on the digital side. How can we create better lead generation for the B2B companies like yourself to be able to meet potential clients, and also for you guys to get your message out there to the industry is also important. So I think that they will definitely continue, and they will work alongside the traditional in-person events now in 2021 and beyond. It'll be interesting to see, but I'm happy to hear that that you will be at iGaming Next at least later in the year. Yeah, good to hear that. Okay, very good. So to close off the things today, Ben, I'd like to travel over the Atlantic to a market that is on everyone's lips at the moment, the US market, obviously.
Yes.
GIG were there and obviously worked with Hard Rock a couple of years ago. You were there quite early. And since then, obviously, there's been a bit up and down. And I would like to ask you kind of, what were your learnings from the Hard Rock deal that you made a couple of years ago? And how are you now looking at the US as you go forward into the future?
Yeah, we're looking at the US in a really positive manner. Hard Rock was great. It was a lot of learning, especially with New Jersey with the DGE. It was much more stringent than what we'd experienced in markets that were already regulated in Europe. Far more processes to in-house testing, reporting, even down to the release notes. Even then, just to go through the due diligence as a supplier is really extensive. So I think there was a lot of learnings there. When we did Hard Rock, we didn't have anybody on the ground over there. Now we've got a director of club compliance based in New Jersey. He's been with us for 18 months. So looking back, that's something that we probably should have had in place right away. I think it would have made communication, especially with the regulatory body, a lot easier. But the US is fluid. It's changing day to day. There's markets regulating, like Jeff Ira, they're doing a great job with going against the Wire Act and trying to get that removed. So that will, reduce complexity into the market. For GIG, it's of course exciting. We've got a lot going on in Europe, which is fantastic, and then the new entry with PlayStar, and continue to support Hard Rock in New Jersey and Iowa until they migrate off. But I think it's with everybody. I mean, it's like every state's almost a country, right? So, yeah. And then we're seeing the sports betting revenues coming out. I also think that there will be a transition to casino, even the states that are sportsbook only over the next coming years, which is really great for GIG. It's a really strong point that we have along with our sportsbook, but we're very strong on the casino side of things. So I think that will open up more opportunity. Again, it's just about forming the right partnerships into any market. see a lot of markets open up where they've got open licensing or a lot of skins opened, and it's created market saturation. And even though these states are like small countries, there is also only so much money to go around. So it's to get a partner with good brand awareness or good aspirations like Playstore guys. It's amazing management team. They've got huge sort of product vision for the market, so it'd be really exciting.
Do you expect the US to be kind of a key market for GIG, or do you see it more as something that is that you are keeping your eye on?
No, it's a key market for us. We're investing more into the market as far as resource. We have a lot of open discussions going on now with potential partners across different states. So,
okay, fair enough. Yeah, US obviously predicted to be the biggest market by far in the world, and like you rightly are saying, we should probably not see the US as the market, but we should see the states as individual markets. And this is something Manu Stan of Kindred, who is the head of or the VP of North America there, he echoed this very clearly as well. Is that every state is its own market, so it'll be interesting to see how the progression happens there. Obviously, most of the states are currently focusing on sportsbook only, whereas there are some states that are also opening up for online casino in addition to sportsbook as well. So it'll be interesting to follow that. Ben, it's been a pleasure to have you on today.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Great, thank you so much, Ben, and it'll be interesting to follow up next year again. I'm looking forward to read the end of the 2021 year report the next time, and maybe we can do this again. What do you say? Yeah, exactly. We can talk about the Q3 report when we see each other in at the next iGaming Next conference, right? There we go. That's perfect. Yes. All right, Ben. I wish you an absolutely beautiful day. Good to see you, and take care of yourself. Okay.
You too, Pierre. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.